All right, good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of Wooster City Council being held this Monday, June 17th, 2024. Tonight's meeting is here in council chambers and live streamed on YouTube, and it is after 7:30. Our next regularly scheduled meeting for council will be on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Ms. Hamilton, will you please call the roll of our attendees?
Mr. Abernathy.
Here.
Mr. Gaffey.
Here.
Mr. Huzay.
Here.
Ms. Knappich. Here. Mr. Malta.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Warden. Here.
All right, we are all here. We have a quorum, and the agenda will remain as presented. At this time, I ask you to stand and join the members of council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have an approval or a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Is there any comments, questions, or alterations required? If not, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Minutes are approved. Mr. Mayor, good evening.
Good evening.
Enlighten us.
Well, thank you. I know we've got a big agenda tonight and a lot of things going on, so I'll try to do my best to keep this as brief as I can. You can tell, and again, this is all new to me, my first time through this, but it's amazing how when Memorial Day hits, the schedule of events, at least the evening events type of thing, slows down quite a bit. So I have much less to report than has been previous times. We did have the pickleball courts ribbon cutting. I did get to play, I don't know, I'd be fair to say I played a game. I swung at a few pickleballs, a few occasions. At my age, the most important thing is I didn't hurt myself. That's how you judge outings. I also kept my shirt on, which I know everybody in attendance was happy about, so it was a win-win all the way around. But I can't tell you, I've been driving through there pretty regularly, and those courts down there are getting a lot of use and a lot of favorable reviews. So hats off to council, first of all, for putting up the money to make sure that happened, to our Jack and Deb Miller, who provided a large part of the funding, and then for Kurt Denning and his crew for putting him in play, and Ashley for doing a bunch of the stuff in terms of the setup as well. So I know a lot of people had their hands in that, and something we can be very proud of. Kids Day was last Saturday at the library, a great day, a nice turnout. For those of you that have kids or grandkids that had a chance to go by, my sense was that this was one of the bigger crowds they've had. Kiwanis Strawberry Day was Tuesday. Again, probably the best crowd they've had since pre-COVID, not probably, certainly the best crowd since pre-COVID, not before that. Again, it's kind of a good feeling for the community. The pickleball courts were crowded, the basketball courts were crowded, we had people playing tennis, there had to be 200 kids on the playground. Just a good day for the community, and the weather was perfect. It was about 20 degrees cooler than it is right now, with much less humidity, so a good showing. On the 13th, we had the Wayne County Tax Incentive Review Committee. I mentioned that before, and again, I'm saying this maybe for the benefit of the new council people. When an abatement goes into effect, whether it's a countywide abatement or a local abatement, Ohio ordinances require that it be reviewed annually for compliance with the terms of the agreement. And this was the county one. Again, it involved properties within the city of Worcester, at least partially. And I was a part of that when we reviewed an existing agreement with certified Angus beef and 2 agreements with Daisy. All 3 of those agreements were in compliance. It was a very routine meeting, and we just told those 2 businesses to keep on doing what you're doing. They were, glad to see all the success they're having. Friday, I think Joel sent out a memo on this, or was included in his memo. We had talked before about the Strategic Community Investment Fund grants that were coming out of Columbus. Is one-time money coming out of the governor's office. And the good news and bad news. The bad news is that the projects that we had been looking for assistance with possibly the fire station and the city pool, Christmas run pool, we did not make the cut. The good news is that there are projects in the community that we are going to get the benefit of. There was a $1 million grant to Wooster Community Hospital and a $100,000 grant to Local Roots for their project. Again, it's all our tax dollars, so whether it comes back directly to us or to something else that benefits the community, I think we can look at that as a win. The other thing is, just Saturday, I'm glad I have Ashley here, she can verify this or not, happened to stumble upon a wedding going on the patio at Freelander Chalet. Was that a first? I told him it was, without really knowing for sure. I said, you're probably the first one, but now I feel better about that now. So. But it was a great setup. I got some pictures from it because they were just about ready to start off. So that, again, there's some work to be done there still, but that's a very nice looking place we've got for the community. And then this evening, when we started off today, I think most of council was there. We did a swearing in of the firefighters up at the service center. We had a great turnout. Got the numbers here. We had 3 trainees that were sworn in, 4 new firefighter paramedics, 4 new lieutenants, a captain, and an assistant fire chief. So it was a nice turnout by council. I know that was appreciated, and just one of those nice things that we get to do as part of council and the administration. And then I think all of us were at the tour of the new fire station number 1. Appreciate Chief Staley and the contractors making that available to us. They still have a ways to go. I'm sure there's going to be public open houses down the road when that's a little further along, and I don't know if that's weeks, months. I would sometime in the fall, I would think. But that's going to be a beautiful facility. Again, something that I think we can be proud of, and we know that our firefighters are going to be staying in quarters and living at a place that we can be proud of, which, in all honesty, I'm not sure we could really say that about what they left behind at Fire Station number 1. I think it stays beyond its days by many years, if not decades. So something we can be proud of. Just a handful of upcoming events. June 20th, June 20th, which is Thursday, we're having it's Arbor Day. We're having a tree planting ceremony down at, I think they call it Madison Gateway, which if you follow if you go down South Market, and at the split there, to hang a left, where it tees out into the bypass or into Beaver, just to your right there, you can pull off into there. We had a donor come along and say, that would be really nice. You could fix that up, put some trees in there and make that very attractive. And we said, okay, it's going to cost some money, and they were generous enough to say, okay, I can help with that. So they did. We had to clear it through ODOT. ODOT had some restrictions because it's their property and they're responsible for it, but we're going to have a planning there, and looking forward to that. Next Monday night, Ashley's having the Parks and Rec Commission meeting, and that's the only thunder that she might have, but she's going to accept a donation from the Steve and Chris Matthew Foundation and PRC Sotillo for the communications boards for our playgrounds. And you may have seen some articles in the paper about that. So, again, another good opportunity for us, and again, appreciate the generosity of our community. July 2nd, if you saw today's paper, there was a press release in there about the new CFO at the Wooster Community Hospital. Some details on him. Mr. Schiavelli organized a luncheon for the administration. I've met him. In my position on the Board of Governors, I had a chance to be part of the interview process, and Andres participated as well. But the rest of the administration is going to get a chance to meet him. Again, we'll be looking forward to working closely with him for a very long time. On July 3rd, we are meeting with representatives from the city of Mansfield. They contacted us. I think they have a new mayor. Is that right, Joel? And we were contacted by members of his administration, and they want to come to Worcester, and they want to study what we've done with downtown parking. So I guess we'll tell them what we know. But I think I want to make council aware of that we're doing at least a few things right. July 4th, obviously we had the big fireworks celebration, and that's pretty much all nailed down. Kurt's on top of that, and If you have any questions, you probably can direct them to him.
Gil Ming does most of that work, so, yeah.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot of city employees, police department, fire, force.
Joel sent out his weekly memo or bi-weekly memo last Friday. Joel, is there anything you want to add, the things I didn't touch on?
Just try to give a heads up. I know Jonathan has sent a couple of things regarding the potential TIF down at the Silver Road area to, for the benefit of the housing development. So that's something to expect come September. I had also attached some information on the transportation systems, both county and city. And again, there's a bunch of information, and Phil had a lot to do with that as well. We continue to work with ODOT, the county, Job and Family Services, Community Action, and it looks like we're on a schedule where we'll probably be able to pull down some federal funds to help with that. That will require some legislation probably in September timeframe again, just to accept and be designated as a federal recipient for those as we move forward. So that, just wanted to point that out. And I never ceases to amaze me. You mentioned the wedding, but in the middle of the memo, Ashley always provides the number of events that are at the chalet. I don't know if you looked at that, but 77 already this year and 100 more yet scheduled. No weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, except for 2. And one of them's December 29th. Still get in if you want one on Sunday. And 62 events already scheduled for 2025. So, and we do no advertising, we do no nothing. That's just word of mouth. So that's just been a really neat community asset that we've got there. The only other thing I want to point out real quick, I did a little information on the Downtown Arts District, and there was there's a group of Art Main Street, Wayne Center for the Arts, and some other people have all gotten together to try to sort of kick it off as a little project in what is called Beaver Alley. They'll probably be asking to change that to Butterfly Alley at some point. So the alley's staying open, but doing some things, putting some lighting overhead, painting some butterflies. They've already painted a mural on one of the walls of the Spoon Building down there. They're going to be painting some stuff starting tomorrow on the pavement itself. So we're helping with that, with some of the lighting and supplying some paint and sealing the pavement. So just this sort of one of those first little projects to sort of kick off the Arts District down there.
Thank you. And then looking at tonight's agenda, I am going to only talk about 3 items. I'll leave the rest alone. But those 3 items are ones that we've kicked around quite a bit over the last month. There's been a lot of emails flying around with different proposals from the administration. And I wanted to touch on them briefly just to explain, maybe for the public as much as for council members, where we are on those and where we might be going on this. They're all related to the issue 2 and the fallout from that, as far as the voter initiated referendum that allowed non-medical adult use of marijuana in Ohio. And when that was passed in November of last year, we knew we were going to have to address it at some point. And in January of this year, one of the first things this council did was adopt a moratorium that is set to expire on July 17. So that's now approaching us, and we're trying to lay out, where does council want to be on this? And I know council is trying to make that same decision. Where do we want to be for our community? And we're not all in agreement on that, and it shouldn't be. I mean, I think it'd be a little scary if we were all in agreement, but I think there's been a lot of healthy discussion on that. We have 3 particular pieces of legislation before you tonight, and they're the first 3 items on the agenda. The first is 2024-20, that's on 3rd and final reading. That would provide for a amendment to our zoning code that would give recreational marijuana or adult recreational marijuana facilities the same treatment from a zoning standpoint that we have for medical marijuana facilities that was put in place when that became legal several years ago. The second piece is 2024-20, which again is on 3rd and final reading. That is a repeal of the existing moratorium that would take effect within 30 days, I suppose, because it's not unless it would be adopted on an emergency basis, but it would be 30 days from now. When we first went down this path, these were offered as a pair. I think the thinking was at that point, the council was either going to extend the moratorium indefinitely or adopt the zoning change and repeal the moratorium. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, and really following the last council meeting, it kind of became clear, and maybe I was the slow learner on the block, maybe this became clear to other council people as well, that there's advantages to having that zoning piece in place no matter what happens with the moratorium. It'd be wrong to think of that zoning piece as authorizing marijuana facilities in Worcester. Those are authorized when the voters passed issue 2 in November. So it's just a question of whether we want to regulate those. And that's really the question before council now. And it's really a different question than what was on the ballot. So administration is recommending that 2024-20 be adopted. Because if we fail to do that, and if the moratorium should expire, either by its own terms or by act of council, then you're looking at, and I don't hesitate to use hyperbole, but the term Wild West is there, where everybody puts up a business enterprise wherever they get a permit and wherever they want. And I don't think anybody, and I could be wrong on this, but very few people are thinking that that's a good idea. So we're asking for council to, or recommended council, that you pass 2024-20. The second piece of legislation is the termination of the moratorium. And at this point, I want to thank Mr. Sanders, our council president, and Ms. Knappich, the chair of Laws and Ordinance, because they've done a lot of work in the last week, 10 days, I think, trying to straighten this out and providing, I guess, shepherding us through this process, which is, to some extent part of the job description, particularly for Mr. Sanders. But I think he's got a course of action or proposal here. And I think that Ms. Knappich is going to propose that we table the repeal of the referendum, that's 2024-39, for an indefinite period of time. And again, well, it's going to be up to council to decide whether or not to do that or not. And then we will come to 2024-47, which proposes, that's the third and final piece of legislation tonight, which proposes to extend the existing moratorium to a date to be determined by council. And it's going to be up to council to decide, number one, whether you want to adopt that, number two, how long to extend it to, and maybe for purposes of tonight's meeting, the biggest question is, because it is on first reading, you'll have to decide whether or not you want to suspend the rules and address it tonight. And all I can say is, I think that that's an important issue that I'd want council to have the opportunity to address before July 17. So if it's not, if the rules aren't suspended tonight, we will have special meetings into July until you have a chance to vote on that. I'm not saying you got to pass it, but I'm saying it ought to be brought up to a vote. So with that, again, I apologize for taking up maybe more time than you think is appropriate, but I do want to lay out, and the public doesn't know this, but the council members have seen a number of emails and different legislative proposals from council in the last week. And again, thanks to Mr. Sanders and Ms. Knappich for kind of sorting those out and coming up with not necessarily the end result, but a path for council to get to the end result, whatever it might be. And I will say, again, without knowing what the final outcome is going to look like, I can tell anybody in the city of Worcester that's got concern over this that wherever we end up, I know that the council members took this very seriously, and that they did their best to represent what they thought was in the best interest of the citizens in the community. So I'll say that in advance of, without even knowing the outcome. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on, we have no petitions. We do have 3 people who have signed up, communications from the public. The first one is Kate Olg. Just step up to the podium there.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Do I need to list my address or anything, or just my name and who I am?
Oh, just give us your name, that's fine. We've got all the legal stuff here, so.
Sure. So my name is Kate Oles. I serve as the Executive Vice President for Acreage Holdings, which operates medical marijuana dispensaries in Ohio, as well as 7 other states across the Midwest and New England area. I currently operate 5 medical dispensaries in Ohio that I actually started on my kitchen table when I was 21 years old, and now, about 7 years later, here we are with Ohio recently having passed adult use legislation. I know I came and spoke with council, I think in May, when the moratorium, or I guess it was the Planning Commission recommendation to potentially adjust language to zoning was being considered. And the update that I really want to provide today is some updates from the state's timeline as far as when we could see the requirement to submit locations for new licenses. So just to refresh everybody's memory, as you may not follow this as closely as I do, any new licenses that are being issued in the state are being issued to existing licensees only at this time. That means those with a level 1 cultivation facility will get up to 3 additional dispensary licenses. Those with a level 2 cultivation facility will get 1 additional dispensary, and the existing standalone dispensary operators will also get 1 additional dispensary. The state chose to do this way because it knows that the operators in the program have a history of not only being compliant, but also being able to demonstrate that they can operate within the state's relatively strict requirements for existing marijuana operators. With that being said, they only have a certain amount of time to get locations approved in this new round of licensing. The submission for 10B, which is what the new licenses are considered, the submission for 10B dispensary applications was actually due Friday by 5 p.m. So that application window has now closed. From that process, applicants will end up with a ranking for their priority of where they'd like to locate dispensaries. Once that, what they call lottery, takes place, that gives you the ranking, which is set to occur on June 21st, there will be the opening of site control submissions on July 1st. During that round, from July 1st to, they say, mid-July, licensees are required to submit a property that they have secured and have approval from the landlord for the ability to purchase, and that the landlord or property owner is comfortable with what the use of that facility will be. And then after that location is approved, there's a 45-day period where the licensee has to demonstrate that they have, they're in compliance with whatever the local zoning is in the community where they choose to locate. That form is available now. It was published, I think, on Monday, and I'd be happy to send it if it would be helpful. But it is required to be signed off by local zoning, and there's a few boxes that can be checked as to if there's a moratorium in place, if a local license is required to be applied for, and what that needs to look like to make sure that they have approval from the city. With that being said, there's only a 45-day window to submit that. So after that phase 1 concludes and that 45-day period is passed, that location will no longer be one that is considered secured by the state and will get pushed to what is phase 2, which is less specific to address and only limited by county. So it's a little bit of a different period. The state has every intention of having all adult use licenses able to be issued by September 7th. So the window of time to which cities are able to really determine if this is appropriate for their community for this round of licensing that we're aware of right now is essentially going to expire before the end of this year. And then the state has a 2-year, essentially moratorium on issuance of additional licenses before they'll evaluate the population, the existing dispensaries, and if they need to add more. So I know that was a lot of information, but there have been some updates from the state's timeline, and that's the reason that I think for many licensees like myself, it's really important that we can come to these council meetings, if there's board meetings, and we have the opportunity to meet with members of the community and address concerns that people may have when they think about the way a dispensary will operate. We want to be as proactive as possible about opening that dialogue with both the council people of wards where they would be located, as well as any members of the community. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but if there's also questions from the audience, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Helmuth.
Good evening, my name is Dennis Helmuth. I'm a medical doctor specializing in psychiatry. I'm going to speak in favor of extending the moratorium on recreational cannabis sales. I've spoken to you twice previously, so I promise to keep my comments in summary form. In communities already selling recreational cannabis products, there have been many consequences, not all of them bad. However, I am genuinely concerned about the public health consequences. Comparing before and after legalization of recreational marijuana, the medical literature indicates increases in all of the following: cannabis product potency, emergency room visits and hospitalizations, cannabis dependence, motor vehicle accidents, injuries from falls, severe vomiting, child poisonings, older adult poisonings, unintentional ingestion by children despite the use of child-proof packaging, an increase in the number of calls to poison control centers, and, of particular concern to me, an increase in psychiatric problems, including schizophrenia, especially in young adults. In the event of retail sales of cannabis products, our city would likely experience some of these consequences. I personally do not want to see our community hospital burdened by cannabis-related problems, and I do not want to see more people suffering from cannabis-induced mental problems. Yes, we did vote for recreational marijuana in Ohio, but the wise communities will wait and see the impact on other small cities before jumping on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany Schad.
Hello, I'm Tiffany. I work for a dispensary. I do compliance, regulatory compliance, so I'm also coming with an industry perspective here. I'll piggyback on what was said in the beginning. If you extend the moratorium tonight, realistically, you're not going to see any of the tax revenue or have that opportunity probably for 2 to 3 years again. If you lift it this summer, if you lift it early, as in a month from today, you open up the opportunity to become a site selection for a dispensary, which, as you know, the way it's zoned requires conditional use permit as well, which is a lengthy process in itself. So lifting the moratorium early would allow them to start that process. Also, I would just say that it's legalized. You know, you're not going to, possession's not illegal, having it in town's not illegal. You're not keeping it out of city limits. You're just keeping yourself away from the tax revenue, which host community tax funds receives 36% of sales taxes. So that would be all I had to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have committee reports, which at this point, we have none, and we have no public hearings. So with that, we will move directly into unfinished business, which is third reading of ordinance number 2024-20. And Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read that for us.
Ordinance number 2024-20, an ordinance to approve and adopt the recommendations of the Planning Commission and amend the codified ordinances in accordance with those recommendations.
Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't think much needs to be said in addition to what we've gone over the last 2 meetings and the mayor indicated tonight. So I would move this to third and final reading.
Just motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt, yes.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Knappich. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, if you please call the roll on the motion to adopt. Oh, we can discuss.
Yeah, I did have a quick question.
Oh, certainly.
on this. Just regarding the recreational marijuana dispensaries, I know we're looking at doing a conditional use for the C3 zones. Just looking at the zoning map, there's a lot of schools in those areas. Does conditional use address proximity towards schools, and do we need to address it? Okay.
State law already says they
Right.
have to be 500 feet away from the school.
Okay,
Jim,
that's all I had.
Mr. Scully, do we need to reference those changes in the state law in our ordinances, or are they applied, implied? Okay.
They supersede us.
I've got a question, well, more of a point. Passing change the way the zoning amendments are written, just was kind of let public know, because I wasn't here last week, maybe it was covered, but conditional use requires that the applicant go before planning commission and explain what they want to do and get their opinion and approval before then it comes to city council.
No, it doesn't come
It doesn't come to city council?
No, they
I thought
just,
the same thing.
they have a
Oh,
public,
okay.
they have a public
A
hearing.
public hearing
They have
for
a
that.
public hearing
Okay.
at the planning commission meeting. Planning commission then has to vote on it,
Okay,
yeah.
so it doesn't come back to
It
council?
does
for
not
that.
come back to us, no.
I
But it's still,
recommend we add that to the ordinance.
but it's still enough of a process.
Well, I know, I've been there.
Yeah,
That we add what to the,
yeah.
It has to come to council after it goes to planning commission. As part of the zoning.
That would require, so that's not how conditional zoning works in
Yeah.
the code. So that would require probably a much more in-depth amendment that we really haven't worked on at this point. What I would say is, I don't know what everyone's intention is as to the moratorium, but I would say if everyone's intending of voting in favor of the moratorium extension tonight, that we go ahead and we pass this as is for the good of the city tonight. And then if you're planning on voting for the moratorium, that would give us plenty of time to work on a possible amendment that could get that, if that's what you're looking for, to have that come back to council. Because we wouldn't even be dealing with it until the moratorium was up.
I have a question just
Sure.
for processes, because this change in the zoning ordinance had to go before planning commission. Wouldn't any amendment or change to that have to go before planning commission as
would,
well?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that, so we couldn't amend it tonight anyhow.
No.
no.
Okay.
I'd like to make one point. This is something that I brought up at the last council meeting, and Mr. Scavelli shared some information with us about the updated state laws. So one of the things that I thought council might want to put in place was sort of a cap or a limit on the number of dispensaries that we would allow in our community. And maybe that would make it, I guess, I don't know, more palatable to certain people. But anyhow, after reading through your memorandum, I see that there is already a state law that regulates that within, I think, one per mile of one another, and our C3 zones are spread out to the point where I don't even think that, especially with, as you referenced, Mr. Huzay, the schools and the churches and the other facilities that cannot be within 500 feet, it really limits us to, I don't think we could even possibly have, at state law, more than 2 in our community. I don't quote me on that, because I don't have a map in front of me, but I think that we're already very padded by the state law on that. So I know that was another concern, that maybe we would need to do an amendment this evening, but I don't think it's necessary at this point, because the state would supersede that anyways.
Okay. There's no other conversation or no other comments from council, then Ms. Hamilton, please call the motion on the.
Quick question.
Oh,
How do we vote to pass this if we don't know whether we're going to extend the moratorium? Because we could pass this and then not have a moratorium, and then this is the law and it starts in July. And then we don't have any further restrictions or any time to make any further restrictions.
But I think it would be better to have something in place than to have nothing in place when the moratorium, if we don't pass the extension of the moratorium ends on July 17th.
Right.
I think it's better to have some zoning in place than to not have any zoning in place. So otherwise, they could go in
If
those
we-
2 locations
So if we
that,
pass this and then there's no extension of the moratorium, this is the law and this is no more restrictions, this is where we go, this is what is the law, and they can start that line, right?
Yeah,
That
but
would be
it's still
correct.
amended, so when you come back, so you could still, this could still be changed, starting the first meeting back if you wanted to change it, so.
right.
Wouldn't it be too late? They've already applied under this law.
Well, it depends on if there were applications that are based on that law, but I don't think the area of them would have changed.
well, and
So
this,
then
and this
they
can't,
probably wouldn't have actually come before planning and zoning yet at that.
and this can't be enacted until 30 days.
This takes 30 days
Because it's the
to.
third reading.
So it'll be, I mean, it'll be next month before it can even, and at this point, their deadline, if I heard correctly, was sometime this month.
I think, Mr. Myers, if I can interject here, one of the conversations I had, and I don't know if it was with Ms. Knappich or Mr. Sanders, but I think you can think of this as a safety net, and I think there's been some observations like, well, we could make it there may be things we could do to make it better, but right now, we're working without a net. I mean, we have no net in place, there's no zoning in place, And if that moratorium goes away, you know, we're kind of bare there. So I think this is one of those situations where don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It'd be good to have some type of regulation in place, with the council always having the ability to amend it, than nothing, and nothing is what we have right now.
I agree with what you're saying, but my concern is the order in which we're doing this. If no moratorium exists and or it expires in July, this is the law. I'm not in favor of this, it's not restrictive enough.
Then vote no.
So if I vote against it, you're saying I'm giving no regulation at all. What I'm saying is I'd like more regulation, but because of the way the order of these ordinances, I'm gonna have to vote for something that I don't agree with, because we might have a moratorium or we might not.
Can I ask a question about procedure?
Sure.
Are we able to table this, move to 2439, then move to 47, and then bring back 20?
So right now, there are competing motions. So if you made a motion to table, there'd be competing motions. The motion to table would come up first, and if it passed, then it would be tabled, and then you move on to the next two pieces of legislation. I'm assuming, after the third piece of legislation, which is the moratorium extension, you can move to take it off the table. If that passed, you could move to vote on it again at that point.
Okay, so would that satisfy you then if
That
we,
would make more sense.
if I make the motion to temporarily table this and get down to the moratorium, that would be better for you?
That would make more sense to me.
Okay, so can I do that, Mr. Scavelli?
You may, so you say move to table.
I have a question before you do that. Real quick, another procedural question. If everyone is not in favor of tabling it, I know tabling is not debatable, but if not everybody votes to table, does it have to be unanimous in order to table?
It does not, it's a simple majority.
Okay. Gotcha.
So just to try and understand before I make this motion, is that you're looking for the safety net of trying to try and get the vote to extend the moratorium, to have that safety net before voting for this one, so that you know we definitely have the time to do more work on this legislation.
That would be my.
So it's not so much that, it's more or less, hey, we just need to work more on this legislation, 2024-20.
Right.
But you want to have the extended moratorium in place before you do anything with this?
Right.
Okay.
Well, from a procedural standpoint, Barb.
To do it.
Yeah, Barb
I have
has
to
to
table.
withdraw
Yeah,
her
I have to
motion
withdraw my
to
motion
adopt.
She
first.
does not.
No?
So the motion to table would take precedence.
Okay.
And if someone makes that motion and it was voted on, in order to go back to Barb, she'd have to make a motion for the previous question, which would get you back to Barb's original motion.
How can a motion to table take precedence over a motion to adopt?
Because it's a secondary motion that's made on top of the original. So then you would vote on top of that.
I
And
thought
unless
tonight was
someone made a
gonna be easy.
motion for the previous question, so you would make a motion for the previous question, which would take you back to Barb's original motion.
Ms. Knappich, why don't we just move forward and go ahead and vote?
Whatever you guys want to do, I can do it.
So
I
you
mean,
need.
I know how to do it.
If someone's gonna table, you need a motion for that. If not, then there's already a motion to adopt. So then
Do you want to move to table it and turn it around?
Go ahead.
I mean, I understand what we're doing.
So tabling would just essentially reorder what we're.
It would
Correct.
reorder.
That's all it's doing.
We had discussed.
Yes,
We had discussed that, and at this point, I mean, through the process of trying to work through this in a somewhat of a simplistic fashion, we had chosen to leave this as it was, only from the standpoint to save what we've just spent 15 minutes discussing.
Yep.
But that's okay. We all learned something new tonight.
Do you?
I was just trying to be helpful, and I seem to have muddied it.
Or you can make the motion to table it.
We can just proceed, that's fine.
Okay.
Then we'll just proceed as we were.
All
I
right.
don't want to use any more of Mr. Sanders' minutes.
It's my minutes. I made this motion.
It's her motion.
Those are my motion. This is my motion, it's my minutes. Okay, so we have the motion to,
Please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right. Ordinance 2024-20 is adopted. So we now have our zoning regulations in 30 days. All right, our second item of unfinished business, Resolution 2024-39. Ms. Hamilton, please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-39, a resolution repealing a moratorium on the granting or processing of permits for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable cultivation, processing, or retail sale of marijuana within the city of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
I'm going to move to table this motion.
And you're going to table that based on the fact that the next piece of legislation is
Yes.
going to rediscuss the extension of the moratorium related to cannabis sales,
Correct.
just to make that perfectly clear to everybody.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to table, we have a second. Just please call the roll on the motion to table.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
All right. So Resolution 2024-39 has been tabled. With that, we will move on to new business, Resolution 2024-47, which will also be sponsored by Ms. Knappich, but before that, we'll have Ms. Hamilton read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-47, a resolution extending a moratorium on the granting or processing of permits for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable cultivation, processing, or retail sale of marijuana within the city of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, this, as the mayor indicated, we had talked about extending the current moratorium from July the 17th. Okay, we have July 31st.
July 31st.
Okay, I thought it was the 31st, but I wasn't sure. I just wanted
It is
to
July 31st.
make sure that we had all the numbers in place. Do I have any recommendations from the council members as to what to put as an end date?
If I could recommend, I would say, I would give us to the end of the year. I don't know if we need to select our council's last meeting of the year. Off the top of my head, I don't know what that date would be, but I feel like that would give us a solid amount of time to see how things flesh out. And if necessary, I mean, I know that it was stated earlier that then that would actually, there'd be a 2-year minimum wait before any additional licenses would be available. And so, I mean, that essentially would give a 2-year limit after that.
Our last,
Granted, I'd prefer to just go and move this forward, but I know that that's not what a lot of the most vocal people in our community have said lately. So this would be an opportunity to witness what some other communities are going to experience, if that's what our voters would like to see.
I'm in
before we-
agreement with you, Ms. Warden. I think that's a reasonable date.
I'm in agreement as well, and I want to stress that as we've seen what the state has done so far, they've moved very rapidly. So we don't know that that 2 to 3 year time frame is going to hold true. So I'm good.
yeah, as a point of information, the 16th will be our last meeting in December. And at this point, Mr. Scavelli, in your thought, in your opinion, we just run it to the 31st is probably not going to be the end of the world? I mean, it's not, I mean, at that point, I mean, okay, our last meeting is the 16th, but at the end of the day, should there be some reason that we have some discussion beyond, because I mean, realizing we're going to be working on budget over those last 3 weeks of the year, so at this point, I mean, if we find ourselves in a position where we have to come back to a special meeting after the 16th by setting up the date as the 31st, then at that point, it allows us basically, you know, a week and a half to potentially reconvene should there be additional discussion as needed.
And I will have it on my calendar to just bring it up to everyone if you do choose the 31st of December. Before that, to bring it up to you, probably 3 meetings before that to see what we want to do at that point. So I will make sure I keep that on there so I can bring it up before that.
Yeah, because we have September and October as well. I mean, we're not gonna get into budget until the third week in November, so at this point, we've got plenty of time from that point from now till then to have additional discussion as needed, depending on changes at state level, et cetera. So.
Okay.
Ms. Knappich?
Mr. Hussein?
Mr. Huzat?
I would push for an even longer moratorium, something multi-year. I personally don't have an appetite to keep revisiting this every 6 months. Pulling the citizenry back in every 6 months this comes up, I'd rather just push it off for 2 or 4 year period and take it off our table, essentially, until we have more information from the state and how other communities deal with this issue.
I think because we haven't discussed multi-year moratoriums before tonight, I would not be in favor of that because we haven't even discussed it or considered it. We did discuss and consider extending it for a few months, but that would be my position. Anyone else? And I will.
My only suggestion with Mr. Hussein would be, if we've taken no action and done none of our homework between now and the end of December, I would then be willing to extend the moratorium, because I think that we need to look at some additional information, how other communities are handling it, how other communities are doing, if they've allowed them, any changes to the state regulations. According to, our own law director review, this, the state's subject to change their laws at any time. So I think we have to wait and see what those are. But I don't think we just sit on our hands until the beginning of December. I think we should be looking at these situations ongoing. So I would agree with you. My thought would be it gets extended until such time as additional conditions and stuff are agreed to by council. But I think we have to put a date. I don't think I can put until such time as we agree, so.
Well, we had discussed doing an indefinite moratorium, I thought, before, so I was looking at splitting the baby between end of the year and indefinite. But any moratorium is better than no moratorium.
Yeah. We can always extend it.
Do I need to amend?
Motion to put
That's what I thought. All right, I will amend the motion to put in the date of December 31st, 2024.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay. Motioned, seconded by Ms. Warden. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the motion.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a date. So at this point,
We need to suspend the rules.
we need
Yeah.
to suspend the rules.
Yes. I move
Motion to suspend the rules by Ms. Knappich. Is there a second?
Second.
Excuse
I'll
me.
second. I don't think either one of us said it, so.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton, will you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Knappich, motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
The only thing I'd like to add is that I would ask the citizens to get as much information and your positions and your opinions to your council members in the next 6 months. Because really what we're looking for is we're looking for input from the citizens to, I mean, we had the marijuana law pass, which was okay, for legalization, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the citizens of Worcester want a dispensary here, but they might. So I think it's important to get that input as much as you can to each and every city council person, because I think that will be just as important as the regulations that come from the state. Thank you.
All right. We have worked our way through that. Now it only gets easier.
Hooray.
Well, we have 4 items on budget cap stuff, so at this point, I'm sure we'll have some animated conversation about that now, too, so it's all right.
Tempt me.
All right.
Yeah, but this is what gets the business done.
Oh, I understand. I understand. Ms. Hamilton, if you please read Resolution 2024-44 for us, please.
Resolution number 2024-48, a resolution authorizing additional contract funds and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a very exciting request to increase the amount of previously approved contract by approximately $300,000, and that's in order to complete work under the 2024 Worcester Streets resurfacing contract with Melway Paving Company. The streets that are slated to be resurfaced would include, if this increase is approved, would include Country Lane, Nupp Drive, Wilson Road, Merle Avenue, and Riffle Road between Burbank and Friendsville Roads. Originally, this work was budgeted for property maintenance, our PPM office, and it was planned to be completed by them. However, due to the workload and bid prices provided by Melway, it is advantageous to complete the work as an extension of their contract. I spoke to Mr. Denning today, and he said that after running the numbers, he was able to see that it actually does cost us a little bit less to go with Melway, and they would be able to get to these projects more rapidly than our current schedule would allow with PPM. So this allows it to be done at a lower cost and also more rapidly. I see no reason not to move this forward. Well, it's a budgeted item anyways. The cost estimate was around $725,000, and Melway's bid for the current contract is $559,142.25. Passage of the resolution would increase the contract amount to just under $860,000. So we're getting a lot of work done, and it sounds like we're getting it for, better than the going rate, at least in terms of what we can pay our own people. So yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Warden, second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on approval.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
All right, motion is approved. Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, if you please read Resolution 2024-49.
Resolution number 2024-49, a resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to expend additional funds with Aqua Pools for professional services related to the maintenance of the City of Worcester swimming facilities and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Myers, the floor is yours.
I at least get the fun stuff, so.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Who said marijuana wasn't fun?
Ashley's here this evening to explain, Ms. Hirschberger, if you want to explain what this entails.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. So the first one is for Aqua Pools. So this company does quite a few repairs, maintenance for our pools. So far, we've spent about $30,000 with this company. So this and the next piece of legislation is really, hopefully, we don't go over that $50,000, but just in case we do before the summer is over, we don't have to call you guys back. So we could potentially get over that threshold if something breaks. Hopefully it doesn't, but just in case anything does, that's what that company helps us out with. They did the concrete repairs at Freelander Pool, so that's where a lot of that expense came from this year.
Thank you. This is kind of more of a safety net. If something were to go wrong at the pools, we don't want to have to reconvene council to approve the additional funds. If all goes well, we won't be utilizing these funds at all. But at least this way, we're able to make sure we keep the pools open for our community, so.
Excellent. And Ashley, you keep us up to date on whether we use these funds or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So you have a motion for us, Mr. Myers?
Yeah, motion to suspend the rules.
Motion.
It's budgeted.
Motion
There's
to
no
adopt.
suspension.
Okay, I just was reading where it says that it was required in my.
I know, yeah, and apologies.
Okay.
Well, not for me, but.
But you didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
All right, motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Myers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Malta. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden? Yes. Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
All right. Resolution 2024-50. Ms. Hamilton, please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-50, a resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to expend additional funds with Heritage Pool Supply, OP Aquatics, for professional services related to the maintenance of the City of Worcester swimming facilities and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right. This will also be introduced by Mr. Myers. The floor is yours.
I think we just covered this. This is the same situation, just a different vendor that we utilize for ongoing repairs and maintenance of our pools. So, motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt, second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Ms. Warden? Yes. Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
And Ashley, you'll keep us posted on this one too, right? Thank you.
All right. Resolution is adopted. Next item, Resolution 2024-51. Ms. Hamilton, if you please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-51, a resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to expend additional funds with MD Solutions, Inc. for supplies and materials related to the maintenance of traffic control devices and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is a request that will authorize the purchase of traffic control materials from MD Solutions to maintain our traffic control devices. These materials include traffic sign blanks, brackets, strapping, posts, traffic paint, both yellow and white, and glass beads. Prices for the supplies are at state contract pricing levels, so really, I don't think you can get them for less than what we're able to get them. The city currently has a $15,000 purchase order in place for, that would cover the sign blanks, posts, brackets, strapping, and hardware. I'm sorry, $5,000 of that would cover that with that purchase order. The remaining supplies, the paint and the glass beads that are used to stripe 55 miles of roadway in our city, would require an additional $60,000. And we are apparently bone dry. We don't have any more to use in the city right now, so, and then also by the, I looked this acronym up because it was a real long one, Ohio Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Device Standards. They require that the striping is done each year, so we're really kind of between a rock and a hard place. We have to buy it, and at least we get to buy it from, somebody that contracts with the state at a low level. So the total amount for this request is $75,000, and there's no use arguing, so I'm gonna.
How did we get so off from $15,000 to $75,000? How did we budget so low when we would need so much more?
Well, we don't know who's going to be awarded the contract. So it was, Ennis Flint was the contract holder in years past, so we'd buy from them directly. Prices have escalated as well. So we stayed under that $50,000 threshold. MD Solutions happens to be the vendor for our sign material and the paint.
Okay.
So that's how it's.
So it's a combined
increased.
contract then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so I'll motion to adopt, please.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Warden. Is there a
Second.
second by Mr. Myers? Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Okay, well, The next item has potential for 3 readings. But before Mr. Abernathy gets into that, we will have Ms. Hamilton read ordinance 2024-22, please.
Ordinance number 2024-22, an ordinance authorizing the modification and reissuance of the Healthcare Facilities Revenue Bonds, Series 2019, Westview Healthy Living Project of the City of Worcester, Ohio, in a principal amount of $12,783,137.76, authorizing other documents in connection with the reissuance of the Series 2019 bonds and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, so Westview had some bonds, municipal bonds issued by City of Worcester back in 2019. They're partnering up with First Midwest Bank, and they've had their note reviewed. And so they wanted to do some restructuring of their loan, have some of their covenants changed in their deal. And so in order to do that, they had to make some material changes to their deal. And part of the material changes was the bank actually asked them to do a $6 million capital infusion into their deal. So as you may see here, there's a significant reduction in the debt. So this is not like a minor change, and this is actually a very good thing for us, as it is a massive reduction in risk. So that's the best way I can explain all of this, is there is a significant reduction in risk. We would be reissuing the bonds. And there is some time crunch on this. They have to move on it. They cannot wait through our summer recess. That is a very big summary Cliff Notes version. Andre, is there any additional detail you would want to add to that?
Just to add that the city has 0 risk in this. Our only obligation is, I think Bob, I, and maybe Jonathan's had a bunch of documents, and annually I have to disclose the principal balance of this in our annual report. But we have no liability in this whatsoever.
So I'd open up for any questions or comments. So as I said, there is some urgency to this. They do need to move on this fairly quickly, so I'm going to motion to suspend rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second? Is that Mr. Huzay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Hamilton, please call the vote.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right. Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second? Second by
Just Huzai.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the vote.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thanks for moving that along, council. I don't know if you all were called by the attorney on that, but, yeah, she got a hold of me some night after I got done mowing, and she's like, well, we need to move this along. And I'm like, well, you couldn't have waited any longer, could you? Oh, in any event. All right, Resolution 2024-52. Ms. Hamilton, please read that for us.
Resolution number 2024-52, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into an agreement with Rob Gehring for the purchase of real property, appropriating the necessary funds, and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Huzay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a rather straightforward request from the city. The current owner, Robert Gehring, I believe is how you say his name, he owns the northern half of what's the lot on Bell Avenue, just north of the JFB Brewery. The city owns the parcel just north of that, which used to have a house on it, I believe, that was torn down or something happened to it. And Mr. Fryman owns the southern part of that parking lot. The goal is just to take all 3 parcels together and in the future update this into a public parking space. And Mr. Fryman, I believe, will donate the land to us as well to help make that happen.
Nice.
This is not for the parking lot generally, that will be in sometime in the future. This is just to acquire this kind of middle parcel that was on Mr. Montgomery's memo.
Okay.
Excellent. We could use more parking.
Yes, this will be great to kind of improve the parking situation in that East Liberty corridor, so.
Okay.
No concerns with this, rather straightforward.
So you have a motion to suspend the rules?
Does this require a
Yes.
suspension? Okay, yes, motion is.
Motion to suspend the rules. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the suspension of the rules.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions related to this? If
Motion to
not,
adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Huzay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, our next few items are big dollar items. More of this water and sewer and all the fun stuff that we have to provide as a city. So with that, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read Resolution 2024-53 for us.
Resolution number 2024-53, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a professional services contract with RETU for construction management and engineering services and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
Okay, so Mike Fritz is here with me tonight to answer any real detailed questions. And he's waited all night for this. And him and I are trying to figure out a way to get us to the front of the pack instead of the back. We do, all of these are budgeted. When John was here earlier, a lot of this stuff has been talked about, so we're going to talk about some of the wells tonight. We're going to get a new piece of equipment, which is needed, and some UV lighting as well. But this particular one, anybody has any questions, I'd like you to reference Mike, please.
Council, any questions? All right. Well, with that, Mr. Malta, do you have a motion for us?
I motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item will also be introduced by Mr. Malta, Resolution 2024-54. And Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-54, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to contract with Seifert Technology for technology updates for the Water Resource Recovery Facility and the water treatment plant and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
So SCADA system reports everything back to operation control at the wastewater and water treatment plants. To my knowledge, we still don't have capabilities of getting all of our lift stations via
To fiber.
fiber, but
There's gonna be-
moving them to cellular, so.
Outside the fiber. This is basically to get all of the finish, getting all of the lift stations upgraded, get all the booster stations upgraded, tank sites, everything. This will kind of be the conclusion of that. They are also the contractor on the Long Road Booster Station, which is being rebuilt. So there were it's a situation where we just kept expanding the amount of money that we were going to them with. So this is to, because they're going over $50,000 for the year. But it's multiple projects over both divisions, so.
Are there any questions? I'd like to motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Malta, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Huzay. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
All right, very good. Ms. Hamilton, please read Resolution 2024-55, please.
Resolution number 2024-55, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a contract for the purchase of a mini excavator and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
So this is the piece of equipment I referenced earlier. It's going to maintenance us out of its lifespan, pretty much. It's going to cost too much to continue with this piece, so like a lot of things, it's due for replacement.
And I'm assuming this thing's going to get used probably, if not every other day, every third day?
Yes. Yes.
Well, especially since it,
We're going to transition into an excavator from a backhoe, but yes, this thing's going
Oh, okay.
This thing will hopefully be used every other day.
Well, and I'm sure whoever's going to be operating is going to rather operate this than the backhoe.
Yes.
yeah.
Because I've operated one of these, they're pretty slick, so,
Yes. Yes.
cool. All right, so, Mr. Malta,
I would like to move to adopt.
motion to adopt,
Second.
second by Mr. Abernathy. Is there any conversation necessary? If not, Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 2024-56. Ms. Hamilton, will you please read it for us?
Resolution number 2024-56, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a contract with Egan and Associates, Inc. for professional design and hydrological services related to the design of well S4 and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
So earlier this year, we did discuss these wells, and just wanted to highlight everybody, if they had any questions, please ask. But S1 is, I believe, from the early 70s, 74? 71?
Yes.
Okay. So 53 years old, and we're lucky that it's probably still operating for the most part. A little overdue on this, but yeah, it's our drinking water. So if there aren't any questions.
And most of this is driven by the change in the EPA regulations.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we're going to take S1 out of service.
right.
Once
So
and for
so
all.
at this point, all we're doing is A, we're making sure we've got adequate water system, but yet
Right.
B, because of the EPA regs, we gotta make the adjustment.
Yes.
Mr. Malta, motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
All right. And our last item for Mr. Malta and for Ms. Hamilton. Please read it.
Resolution number 2024-57, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for the replacement of the UV disinfection system at the wastewater treatment plant and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we currently have a UV system that's 20 years old, roughly, so it's past its lifespan. UV is ultraviolet disinfection out of the treatment plant, for those that don't know what that is. And it's time to update. Mike and I talked a lot about it. The current system is down in about 15 feet under a current floor in a well-type environment. This is going to move it up and much more accessible. These bulbs do need cleaned, they do need changed. However, at the same time, we are going to save money going from a high-pressure bulb to a low-pressure bulb, which they do take a lot of electricity, so yeah, budgeted item, won't waste any more time.
Okay.
And I would like to move
Motion to adopt. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Huzay?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
All right, thank you all. This was a long agenda. I think we were judicious in our time. And along those same lines, as we move on to the miscellaneous section, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that have signed up. We realize you have important things that you want to tell us, but we would like you to, you're going to be limited to 2 minutes, and B, please don't repeat yourself. Because at this point, like I say, we understand it's important to you, and it's important to us to hear that, but we don't need to hear it 16 times, or in this case, 6. So, in any event, we'll start off with Miriam Goknauer.
Hello, esteemed council members. My name is Miriam. We are bringing forth a resolution authored by the Wooster Peace Collective. We are a group of community members as well as students and professors from the College of Wooster. We formed last January in response to the war in Gaza. To date, this resolution has been officially endorsed by the Wooster Friends, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County, the Wooster Orville NAACP, and the Westminster Session. These faith and civic organizations are asking the council to pass the ceasefire resolution. Similar resolutions calling for an end to the Israel-Gaza war have been passed by Ohio cities such as Athens, Cincinnati, Dayton, Akron, and Toledo. These resolutions show the bravery of elected officials to stand for a world free from atrocities that began with Hamas's horrific attack on Israel and which have continued with Israel's ruthless 8-month siege on Gaza. If this war is allowed to continue, tens of thousands more are at active risk of dying from famine. If we do not act immediately, these deaths will be added to the nearly 40,000 who have died on both sides. This is the equivalent of the population of our beloved city being erased from existence. The Wooster Peace Collective believes that such actions, even by small communities such as Wooster, matter. We hope that the members of the council can open their hearts and stand with justice to end this war. And now some of my fellows will be reading the resolution to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elena Sokol.
Hello, I'm Elena Sokol. I live a few blocks up on Forest Drive. I'm a retired professor from the College of Worcester. So this draft of our resolution condemns all forms of hate and discrimination in this city and around the world. It supports the United Nations Security Council resolution calling for a halt to the fighting in Gaza. It demands the release of all Israeli and Palestinian hostages, demands reinstatement of the U.S. government funding for United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, calling for enforcement of the Leahy Law. Whereas this council condemns violence of any kind and all forms of hate, including racism, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism, and insists that all people have the right to learn, work, worship, and live free from intimidation, harassment, and fear of violence. Whereas Israel sustained a horrific attack on October 7th that left 1,200 dead and more than 1,400 Israelis have died as a result of the conflict, and more than 5,432 have been wounded. Whereas Israel's post-October 7th bombardment of Gaza has killed more than 35,000 Palestinians, 70% of which are women and children, and over 78,000 have been wounded. Whereas 412 Palestinians, including 106 children, have been killed in the West Bank since October 7th. Whereas Israel has routinely bombed and shelled hospitals, 24 schools, 80% of all schools are damaged or destroyed, universities, 12.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Zach Winsky.
Good evening. I'm Zach Ruinski. I live and work in the city of Worcester. Israel has routinely bombed and shelled, in addition, mosques, 227, churches, 2, and heritage sites, 195. Whereas 70% of all infrastructure in Gaza has been destroyed or damaged, and now 500,000 Palestinians are permanently without housing. Whereas Oxfam reports that, quote, the escalation of hostilities in Palestine, the Gaza Strip, in late 2023 has created the most severe food crisis in Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, IPC, and Global Report on Food Crises, GRFC, history, end quote. Whereas the UN RWA is vitally important to the survival of the civilian population of Gaza, and the United States has withdrawn all funding for UN RWA. Whereas Israel continues to impede the entry of essential humanitarian aid into Gaza. Whereas the International Court of Justice found it is plausible that Israel has committed acts that violate the Genocide Convention, and said that Israel must take immediate and effective measures to ensure the provision of urgently needed humanitarian aid and basic services. Whereas the United Nations Security Council adopted a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. And whereas the U.S. Leahy Law statutes prohibit the U.S. government from using funds for assistance to units of foreign security forces where there is credible information implicating that unit in the commission of gross violations of human rights. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Wooster City Council, Section 1, that this council condemns all forms of hate and discrimination in this city and around the world, and supports the United Nations Security Council resolution calling for a halt to the fighting in Gaza. Section 2, that this council calls
Sir,
for...
your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Christopher Stormer.
Hello, I'm Christopher Stormer. I live and work in the city of Worcester. Section 2, that this council calls for the release of all Israelis and Palestinians being illegally held or imprisoned. Section 3, that this council hereby demands that Congress reinstate all funding to UNRWA to avert the growing humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Section 4, that this council hereby demands that the President of the United States, Joseph Biden, enforce the Leahy Law by ceasing to provide funding for weapons and other military defense uses to Israel until it complies with the UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire, and with the ICJ's International Criminal Court of Justice order that Israel ensure the provision of urgently needed humanitarian aid and basic services, and until a thorough investigation into the claims of plausible genocide can be made by the appropriate international authorities. That is the end of the resolution. I want to call on all of you with my remaining time to open your hearts, to think about the number of people that have died in Gaza. Everyone in Worcester and some of the surrounding community would have died. That's the same amount of people that have died. So open your hearts and consider this resolution, please.
Thank you. Ruth Sewell. Hopefully I'm close on your last name.
That was very good. It is Sewell. I'm Ruth Sewell, and I live on Burbank Road in Worcester. And I believe that just as Trump doesn't represent the views of all Republicans, Hamas doesn't represent the views of all Palestinians. Zionists don't represent the views of all Israelis, nor of all American Jews. The extremists have made an uncontrolled situation for all. I speak for the people who have no say in the extreme politics. I particularly am in sympathy with Jewish Americans who know that they have no voice in this war, but bear the brunt of undeserved bigotry. Peace in this conflict will take as much work as does the war. Blessed are the peacemakers. These are the peacemakers. These churches have made formal resolutions for a ceasefire as presented on this petition. The American Friends Service, Lutheran World Federation, Christian Church Disciples of Christ, the Episcopalian Church, the Evangelical Lutheran in America, Franciscan Action Network, Mennonite Central Committee, the National Council of Churches, Presbyterian Church of the United States, Office of Public Witness, Pope Francis, United Church of Christ, the United Methodist General Board of Church and Society. I have with me copies of these resolutions from the Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church. And if anyone would like to look at them, I'd be glad to give them to you.
Thank you. Barbara Lacombe.
Hello, I'm Barbara Larkham, and I live on Greenwood Boulevard here in Worcester. I'm here to speak on behalf of the resolution supporting it, and I hope that the City Council will consider passing it. There are similar resolutions that have been passed, as somebody mentioned, across Ohio, but also across the United States and even across the world. And I think what we're trying to do here is to lift our voices in this locality, to join those voices with many voices across the country so that collectively we're letting our government know where we stand on this issue and what we're urging them to do. Up until now, we've been rather disappointed in the United States government and how they've acted in this war, because they have continued to support sending weapons which have been used to bomb people in Palestine. And when I have something of a friendship on Facebook, which I've had for over 4 years now, with a family in Gaza. And so I know from their experiences, their house was bombed in Khan Yunis, and then they were forced to move south because they were told that it would be safer if they moved south. And so they did, and they've been living in a tent, one of a sea of tents in Rafah. And then more recently, they were told that they should, in order to be safe, they should go back north up to Khan Yunis. In the meantime, because of the lack of medical facilities, they've had no health treatment, and they've had a number of illnesses. And like the tens of thousands of people in Gaza, they're not getting enough food. So the children are suffering from malnutrition, and so that also lends itself to lack of health care and lack of health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for sharing your thoughts and concerns on this horrific situation. With that, we'll move on to the balance of our miscellaneous section. I'll start with Mr. Huzai. Do you have anything you wish to add or share?
Just want to send out condolences to Andy Guidetti and his family. Passed away last week, and I know worked for the city for, what, a decade or more. And he was always around, so if you saw Andy and you knew him, he was a good guy.
Thank you. Mr. Abernathy.
Nothing to add this evening, Mr. President.
Mr. Havoc.
I just want to thank everyone for being here. It's always a pleasure to hear the citizens' input on every issue. We may not agree, we may not all agree, but it's very important to get your opinions heard, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Myers?
Yeah, I want to say thanks to everybody for coming. I really do appreciate you taking the time. And I know some of you have reached out to me outside of this meeting, and I do appreciate that as well. Thanks again. Have a good rest of your evening.
Mr. Malta?
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for all attending. That's why we're here. Without the public, you don't really need us, so, thanks.
Ms. Warden?
I'd like to congratulate the firefighters and thank them for inviting all of us up, or those of us who could make it this evening, to watch their swearing-in ceremonies. That was very touching, and it was nice to see such a large crowd there in support of them. And I would also like to thank everybody for coming and sharing your opinions with us tonight. I can say from personal experience that hearing from people, even though hearing from my constituents, even though it might not necessarily be an opinion that I personally hold, it is valuable, and I try to vote with that in mind when I'm up here, because I know that I'm not here to push forth my personal agenda. And so in that vein, I would like to invite people with varying opinions on subjects to attend the meetings, or, as I believe Ms. Knappich said earlier, to reach out to all of us, in the coming months, because we are going to have some future big decisions to make, especially with regard to the marijuana legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Gaffey?
Aside from feeling left out that I was the only one that didn't have something to read tonight,
Give all legislation to
it's all right. I'd just like to echo what they, I know, it's amazing.
Finally, somebody knows how I feel to spend all that money.
I would just like to echo condolences to Andy Guidetti's family, and also thank you for everyone coming out tonight and sharing your opinions on the issues. I think it's very important, as many have stated, to get community engagement and to share your feelings and opinions on issues with City Council. That is very important. So other than that, I have nothing else to add, and I won't keep us any longer.
All right, very good. Mr. Myers?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion to adjourn, thank you all.
That was made
We'll
to
see you all in
be seconded.
September.